Shilian never paused in his attacks, but his mind rapidly processed the comment. It shouldn't be this easy to guess that the soul-stripping spell is active. How did it determine that I'm not Shi Qingxuan so quickly? Well, whatever, keep going. The way he fought was completely inhumane. The Reverend of Empty Words seemed unable to take the beating anymore, so it spoke, "You'll fall down this instant!" Sure enough, it had started to direct curses at Shilian. However, it was like Shilian had heard nothing, and he only pummeled it harder. The Reverend of Empty Words then said, "You're going to face defeat!" Shilian laughed. I already faced defeat 800 years ago. A few more times means nothing to me. How much more can I be defeated? Just give up. Nothing you say to me will work. Guga, Hua Cheng called, if you can't determine where you are, just launch a whirlwind into the sky with the Windmaster fan and I'll be able to locate you. What a coincidence. Shilian had just had the same thought. All right. Just as he was about to make the move, the Reverend of Empty Words let out a creepy chuckle. Someone's coming. For some reason, that alarmed Shilian. Sure enough, the creature hissed. Don't worry. The one coming to find you will die before your very eyes. Shilian couldn't laugh anymore. His heart dropped violently and his breathing hitched. The next second, he surprisingly yelled out loud, Shut up! In a flash, he landed more than 50 heavy kicks on the Reverend of Empty Words, each bashing directly on its head. Though it could barely speak under such an onslaught, it still sighed in deep satisfaction, like it had partaken of some sacred gourmet delight. It then laughed coldly. Shilian had accidentally dropped his guard and let it taste what it wanted. But Shilian hadn't the mind to notice, because what it said truly struck a terrible blow on his heart. Even if he knew Hua Cheng wouldn't die before his very eyes, so easily as the creature said, and to be frank, Hua Cheng was already dead, a deep, uncontrollable panic still manifested in him. He hadn't realized that he couldn't stand to even hear the idea. Although those in the communication array didn't notice anything amiss, it was as if Hua Cheng had a sixth sense, and he grew audibly alarmed. Guga, is it saying something to you? It's saying nonsense. No, it said nothing, Shilian replied. Hua Cheng immediately understood and let out a curse. It's seeking its own death. Tell me right now and I'll come straight to you. No need, don't come here, Shilian hastily said. Absolutely do not come. Tell me, Hua Cheng urged. Sorry to interrupt, Shi Qingxuan spoke. The two of you really did secretly exchange verbal passwords, right? Your Highness, did you not notice? You're in the wrong array. The wrong array! It was only then that Shilian realized the problem. Ever since he used the soul-stripping spell, while every word Hua Cheng said to him was passed through their private communication array, he'd been so focused on fighting and his heart was such a mess that he'd been responding in their group spiritual communication array by accident. Now the fact that they had connected in private communication was utterly exposed. However, this was no time to be embarrassed. It's nothing, Shilian said. Give me half an incense time. I can take care of this thing. After that, he plugged his ears anew and focused only on dealing with the Reverend of Empty Words, unleashing even more brutal attacks. He had no idea that back in the town of Fugu, Hua Cheng heard his reassurance, raised his hand, and struck Mingyi. Mingyi crashed a meter into the ground from the force of the blow. Hua Cheng whirled around to address Shi Qingxuan, who had taken over Shilian's body. Switch back. Shi Qingxuan had already planned on changing back, but after seeing that strike, he hurriedly said, Crimson Rain Sunflower, what are you doing? I'll switch back right now. His Highness is helping me, so it'd make more sense if you hit me. Why did you hit Mingsheng? But the moment he spoke, he realized that he was currently in Shilian's body. Of course Hua Cheng wouldn't hit him. If he had to hit someone, his only choice was Mingyi. But back in the dark forest, Shilian's immersion in the fight was disrupted by Shi Qingxuan hollering in the communication array. Your Highness, can you please plug my ears and run away? I'm switching back. Lord Windmaster, will you be able to handle it? Shi Qingxuan asked. I can't fight it, but I can still flee from it, Shi Qingxuan replied. Shilian gave the Reverend of Empty Words one final kick, sending it flying dozens of meters away. He turned around to make a run for it. But then he stopped. Wait, you don't need to flee. Let me set up a protection array for you. Lord Windmaster, do you have any protective spiritual devices on your person? If you don't, precious treasures will do. Hearing him, Shi Qingxuan hastily replied, Treasure? I've got that. Feel around my neck. There's a longevity lock. Will that do? Shilian felt around, and sure enough, Shi Qingxuan was wearing a longevity lock on a long golden chain. Its sheen was exquisite and opulent. Yes, this is a rare treasure, excellent, he exclaimed in delight. Really? Shi Qingxuan said. I've got plenty more. There's the jade belt around my waist, the agate ring on my finger, some pearls on my boots, and the sandalwood handle of my whisk that's older than you. Oh, Apparently the whisk's hairs are also rare, plucked from some spiritual beast. He rattled off 7 or 8 items in one breath, then concluded, in any case, Your Highness, just take a look and see if you can use anything on me. Yes, they could be used. They were all extremely rare treasures. Shilian was shocked, as expected of the younger brother of the Watermaster, the god of wealth. These will work, Shilian assured. I'll find a house nearby to set up an array. When you've switched back, keep the earplugs in and don't look outside. Stay in the house and don't go out. Wait until we come find you. Shi Qingchuan was about to break down in tears. Your Highness, you're just too reliable. Thank you. From today onward, you're my other best friend. This Windmaster will never forget you in any good endeavors. Shilian didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so he responded politely, Thank you. During their exchange, the Reverend of Empty Words was left in the dust. Glancing around, Shilian found a small pavilion nearby and hurried inside, then shut and locked all the doors and windows with a wave of his hand. He wrapped the golden longevity lock around the door latch, laid out the other treasure's information, and bit his finger to draw an array with blood. All of these actions were done in quick succession, and once complete, he sat in the center of the room and closed his eyes. 1, 2, 3. Soul-shifting spell. Return! He felt violently hurled into the skies again, then plunged downward. After a wave of vertigo, Shilian once more felt his feet touch the ground. He swayed and very nearly fell over, but a pair of hands caught and supported him before he could. He heard Hua Cheng's dark, grave voice when he opened his eyes. Gaga, I think you had better explain yourself. Shilian grabbed his arm to keep steady. Just as he was about to respond, he noticed someone was missing. Where's Lord Earthmaster? He asked. Don't know, Hua Cheng said dismissively. Shilian was taken aback. Don't know? Then he looked to the side. There was a human-shaped crater on the ground, and Mingyi was slowly crawling out of the hole. Shilian was struck momentarily speechless. We have illustration. Shi Qingchuan's voice came over the communication array. Huh? Shilian tensed. Has it come? Since he'd had access to so many of Shi Qingchuan's treasures to form an array, the defense of the house was impenetrable. The Reverend of Empty Words shouldn't be able to intrude so easily. Even if it was powerful, it would still take quite a bit of time. However, Shi Qingchuan said, No, Your Highness, this array is impressive. Steady as the mountains, it's really secure. I don't think anything could just break in for the next 3 days and nights. It's just, I can't believe I'm here. Where? Do you recognize it? Shilian asked, amazed. Of course I recognize it, Shi Qingchuan replied. This is the Terrace of Cascading Wine. It's where I ascended. The Terrace of Cascading Wine? Shilian blinked. Shi Qingchuan seemed to have made a circuit of the room. That's right, he firmly concluded. I'm sure of it. I come back here every few decades to check up on it. No wonder the Reverend of Empty Words could tell he wasn't the real Shi Qingchuan. If he were here, he wouldn't have been so disoriented when scanning for nearby landmarks. He would have known they were near the Terrace of Cascading Wine with just one look. After Mingyi crawled out from the hole, he squatted on the ground to start drawing an array. But after only drawing a few strokes, he raised his hand and blasted the array entirely. Hua Cheng's eyes grew cold, and Shilian was startled. Lord Earthmaster, what are you doing? Mingyi rose to his feet. We can't use the teleportation array anymore. We have to go on foot. What do you mean we can't use it? Shilian exclaimed. Someone has just destroyed all teleportation array connection points near the Terrace of Cascading Wind. No, all the connection points in the whole area. Shi Qingchuan was brought to the Terrace of Cascading Wine via the teleportation array not long ago. It would appear that as soon as Shi Qingchuan hid himself inside the pavilion, the Reverend of Empty Words reacted. It had tampered with the points to intentionally slow the rest of them down. It was like their attempt to cross through a mountain range had been thwarted by their enemy destroying the passes. Now, no one could get close to the Terrace of Cascading Wine using the teleportation array. If we leave now, how long will it take before we get there? Shilian asked. Mingyi had already turned and set off. An hour. Shilian called out to Shi Qingchuan in the communication array. Lord and Master, we're heading to where you are. We'll be there within an hour. Just sit tight until we get there. If anyone or anything knocks, you absolutely must not open the door. Yes, that goes without saying, Shi Qingchuan said. Even if you hadn't said it, I already know that. I'm not a toddler who'll open the door to anybody. So then, my lords, please hurry, okay? Fortunately, the town of Fugu and the Terrace of Cascading Wine weren't on opposite ends of the earth, but within an acceptable distance of each other. They could still make decent time if they hurried. So the three set off, then and there. On the way, Shilian casually tested how much power he had left, and discovered that the soul-shifting spell had indeed burned out his supply quite aggressively. Of the enormous flood Huacheng had poured into him, more than half was already spent. Huacheng noticed his movements. "Guga, do you need more?" Shilian hastily shook his head. "No, really, Sunlun, thank you ever so much for your generosity earlier." "You're welcome," Huacheng said. "I already said you can take as much as you want." After a pause, he added, half-jokingly, "But when Guga pays me back, can I collect some interest?" Shilian softly cleared his throat, thinking it was probably a question of whether he could pay anything back at all, but of course he still put on a bold front. "Yeah, sure." Although they had estimated the journey would take an hour, the three of them weren't mortal, and it was a dire situation, so naturally they arrived sooner than expected. When they reached the terrace of cascading wine, Julien took a look around. Sure enough, it was the same place he'd seen before. They were surrounded by the chaotic mess created by his misuse of the Windmaster fan. It had refused his control and blown over trees and bushes. Julien felt a little embarrassed by the sight. "Your Highness, in which building did you set up the spiritual array? Do you remember?" Mingy asked. Of course Julien remembered, and was searching for it as well. Soon his eyes lit up and he pointed. "It's that small pavilion." The three headed toward the pavilion. The nearer they got, the more relaxed they became, as if they had finally seen a ray of hope. But when they were close, Julien's pupils shrank. The doors to the small pavilion were open. They creaked eerily as they swung back and forth in the cold night air. And that is chapter 55.